Welcome to the session on age-related problems. Age-related problems are one of the easier kinds of quantitative aptitude questions. Let us have a good look at what exactly is the requirement to answer age-related problems. It is understanding of the age phenomenon. It means that all people in this world age together. Imagine you are 21 years old today. I am 30 years old. 10 years ago, you were 11 years old and I was 20 years old. This concept is the basic thing that one needs to understand in solving these kinds of problems. Further to this, all kinds of algebraic applications like variable allocation, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division will be required to be understood to solve these kinds of problems. Variable allocation is very important, not from the perspective of this set of problems, but in general as well. What is a variable? It is something whose correct value is not known. The value may vary, and therefore the name variable. We generally use it in mathematics to represent some value that is to be found out, some value that is unknown, or some value that may have multiple values. Now let us look at an age-related question. Look at question Q1. Let us understand this concept from the point of view of approaching a question. What are the key details? Who are the characters? A. Father. B. Son. What is to be found out? Their present ages. What is the data that we know? Sum of their present ages is 45. Here the most important reference is the first line of the question, where a relation is given involving the age of the father and the son. The timeline in question is 5 years before the present age. The important things to note here are the reference points. What we need to find out is the present ages of the father and the son, and the relation given is of 5 years before. We do not know the age of the father and the son now. So these two unknowns are ideal candidates for assigning variables. We know from the exercise so far that we have two variables here, the age of the father and the age of the son. So we need two equations to solve this problem. Please remember the algebraic concepts that we had learned in class 5 or 6 regarding the solution of linear equations in two variables. We have to have two equations to find the two variables. Where do we get them from? We need to read the question and formulate the equations. Formulation means understanding the equations and trying to put a mathematical form to the data given there. Once we have a set of equations, we are definitely good at solving those because we have solved hundreds of equations when at school. The primary skill required in solving age-related questions is English language skill of comprehension, and then comes the application of logic. Unless one understands what is asked, it is very difficult to find out the answer. Therefore, the requirement of the candidate to understand the question is of great importance. Here is where familiarity with questions would help. And how to build that familiarity? Read more and more questions and understand the general nature of English used in such questions. The question given here asks what Sachin's age after 10 years is if he is 20 years old today. Sachin's age after 10 years will be 20 plus 10 equals 30 years. In 10 years, A will be twice as old as B. Means what? It means that after 10 years, A will have twice the age of B. So at present, is the age of A twice that of B? Think. If yes, why? If no, why? The statement means that after 10 years, A's age will be double of B's age. Now, unless you understand this, you cannot proceed further in this question. This kind of usage is not very common in English books or articles, but is very common in logical questions. So you need to get familiar with such language by reading and solving more and more questions. Now, all the while listening to this presentation, you would have thought that these are the things that you have learned in class 5. So why should I learn these again? What is the difference? You are right. The concept is the same. But you will have questions that will have a higher standard of English in the questions as you would have seen from the previous examples. So formulation is difficult, and in contrast to how you would have done in class 5, no help will be there from the peers or teachers while trying to get the answer. The advantage will be that there will be options for you to fall back upon when you find out the answers. You will be given 4 or 5 answer choices to limit your search of answers. The solution of the equations is absolutely similar to what we have done in smaller classes and in all classes from there on. The concept of options is a good help. At advanced stages of preparation, in some questions, it might be possible for you to find out the answers from the options, or just use the options to get to the answer and cross-check with the given conditions. But it is recommended only after you have mastered the way to get to the answer in the conventional way. Anyways, since we have started preparation, let us refresh how to solve a set of simultaneous equations in 2 variables. Refer the question Q3. Try to solve it yourself and go through the approach. The method shown there illustrates how to solve a set of 2 equations in 2 variables. You can equate the coefficient of either x or y and eliminate one of the variables. Thus, you can find out the value of the other variable. In this example, we have eliminated x first and then found out the value of y. After that, we use the value of y to find out the value of x. Please make sure that you understand how to solve the equations, because it is one thing that needs to be clear to get to the answer in age-related problems. To find out if you know how to solve the equations, first equate x and then equate y on your own. See if the answers match. Once again, I would like to remind you that age increases or decreases equally for all human beings on earth. Everyone's age will increase by 1 in a year's time. Normally, the questions connected with age do not violate biological principles. Father's age is more than the son's age. Mother's age is more than the daughter's age, etc. However, do not rule out the possibility of it happening otherwise as well. Let's look at the question Q4 given in the slide. In 10 years, B will be twice as old as A. Presently, B is 15 years older than A. What do you understand? After 10 years, the age of B will be double the age of A at that time. And now, B's age is more than A's age by 15 years. Based on these data, we are asked to find the present ages of A and B. In every sentence, there will be an equation in such kinds of questions. Now we shall convert the sentences to equations. First of all, let us allocate the variables. In smaller classes, we used to allocate x and y for everything unknown. Now that has to change. Why? Because if we use x and y, we need to look at what is represented by x and what is represented by y after we get the answers to x and y. This is a loss of time, and we can eliminate this if we use variables that match the context. So we will give variable b to represent the present age of b and variable a to represent the present age of a. As per the first sentence, b plus 10 equals 2 times a plus 10. B plus 10 is b's age after 10 years because b's age today is represented by b. So after 10 years, the age will be b plus 10. Similarly, the age of a after 10 years will be a plus 10 because we have taken a's present age as a. Second sentence states that b equals a plus 15. Solving these two equations, we get a equals 5 and b equals 20. That is, the present age of a is 5 years and that of b is 20 years. After 10 years, a will be 15 years of age and b will be 30, which is 2 times 15. I hope you got the solution correct. As we solved the equations, we did two things. We formulated the equations and then solved them. As discussed, proper naming of variables needs to be made into practice. Ram's age will be represented by R and Peter's age would be represented by P and so on. For the first few problems that we do in this category, it is mandatory that we need to cross-check the answers with the equations that we formulated in the beginning. This is to avoid any mistakes that we would have made while solving these equations. As it becomes routine and we become more confident in solving equations, we can do away with this practice. Now let us look at the most common mistakes that students make while solving such problems. The most common mistake has to do with the failure to implement the concept that age increases and decreases together for all characters. So the father's age is reduced, but the son's age is not, and so on. Age increases and decreases for all concerned, not for one person alone. The next concerns the reference point for the calculations. The reference point can be the past, the present, or the future, but it has to remain the same throughout the problem. In the previous example, the present was the reference, but it can be the past or even the future. Only thing is that the reference to the variable will change accordingly. Instead of the present age being B, it will be B's age after 10 years. That's all. You can use any point as the reference point, but make sure that you use the most comfortable one and keep it the same throughout. Yet another way to know if you are becoming very sure in these concepts is to solve the same question in different ways, which is by solving it by using different reference points. First, solve the question with reference at present, then with reference 10 years later. If we get the same answers always, we can know our understanding is improving. Let us revisit the problem that we started with, the question Q1. 5 years ago, the product of the ages of a father and son was 4 times the age of the father at that time. The sum of their present ages is 45. We are asked to find the present ages of the father and son. Let us consider the present time as the reference point. Let us use F to represent the father's present age and S to represent the son's present age. Now the first sentence would give the equation f minus 5 into s minus 5 equals 4 times f minus 5. From the second sentence, we get the second equation as f plus s equals 45. Before solving the two equations, from the first one itself, by cancelling the f minus 5's on both sides, we can say s minus 5 equals 4, thus s equals 9. Substituting this in second equation, we get f equals 36. See how simple the solution turns out to be? Mistakes can happen at 3 stages: during reading and understanding, during formulation, and during solution. The first one is due to lack of English skills. The second one is because of a wrong choice of reference or lack of mathematical skills. And the last one is due to lack of concentration. This is what we call silly mistakes. They are very serious and can cost you a selection. So do concentrate while doing these questions. Let us put what we have learned from this class on age-related questions in a nutshell. What are the styles of questions? We understood that when we read and solved the sample questions and had a look at a couple of statements other than the sample questions. The approach in formulating the questions and the intricacies regarding formulation and declaration of variables. How to solve linear equations in two variables. Points to be careful about while doing the questions so that we reach the solution faster and without mistakes. We came across the idea that the aim is to solve the question, not formulate the equations and then solve it. We can solve it in the conventional way or from the options. We had a look at the importance of time and ways to reach the answer faster in terms of definition of variables, etc. We had a look at the most common mistakes that we make in solving these kinds of questions. We also had a look at how to avoid them and how to make sure that the answers we got are correct or not by substituting those in the formulated equations. Thank you.